Hey guys, and welcome to the school station. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about convection. This from the AQA GCSE Physics 91 paper from the unit Energy and Energy Resources. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about convection, which is part 2 of our energy transfers by heating series. So let's just get right into the video. So previously, we have looked at the three main ways of energy transfer by heating. Part 1 was conduction. Conduction is how heat energy transfers in solids. Part 2 is convection, which is how heat energy transfers in fluids, which is liquids and gases. And part 3 is radiation, where it takes place through no particles or no volume. This is like, for example, in space, how the sun's heat energy radiates into the Earth. However, today we're only going to be looking at part 2 of convection. If you want to know about conduction, I've already made a video about that. And radiation's video is also going to be coming soon. So let's just get right into the video. So first of all, before we actually think about convection, we have to think about what is heat energy. Heat energy is the high kinetic energy of atoms, molecules, and ions. The way I would remember this is, for example, if we're boiling a kettle of water, you will realize that the particles in the water are bubbling and they're moving very, very fast. This is high kinetic energy. This is because the particles are colliding with the walls of the kettle and are colliding with each other, and soon after they will actually get a lot of heat. So this is a definition of heat energy, and it's really important to remember this because convection is all about heat energy transferring through fluids. Speaking about convection, we have just now understood the definition of convection. Convection is the transfer of heat energy through fluids, which are liquids and gases. So conduction is when it happens in a solid, and convection happens in liquids and gases. Convection occurs when particles with a lot of heat energy in a liquid or gas move and take the place of particles with less heat energy. Heat energy is transferred from hot places to cooler places by convection. So what you really have to understand is that when we're heating something up, we're actually giving it a lot of heat energy. And when there is actually a particular place where a lot of heat energy is gaining, it actually also goes to the cooler places for it to get heat energy as well. As I said earlier, for example, if we're boiling a kettle of hot water, and we just are boiling it to make it even more hotter, you'll realize that when we're giving the heat energy, it's going to go to the bottom of the kettle, which is where there is the most hot, and it's going to even go to the cooler places, which is at the top of the water as well. This was going to be called a convection current. A convection current is basically when the warmer water rises and the cooler water descends. So we can see over here there is a pound of water, and we can see that there is actually the fire that is going nearest to the bottom of the water. So what happens is that the bottom of the water gets the warmest, and it actually goes up because the warm water stays in the bottom while the cool water stays in the top, and the hot, less dense goes up to the cooler water as the more dense cooler water descends. So what happens is this is just a current that keeps going on and on until all the water becomes the same temperature. So if you have this fire, it's going in the kettle, this bottom part of the water gets really hot, but this is less dense, so it goes to the cooler water, which is at the top, but the cooler water also descends because it wants to go to the less dense section. So it just kind of goes like that as a cycle, and this basically keeps on happening until all the water becomes the same temperature. Now, I've just actually told you guys a term that you may not have heard that much in my videos. This is density. So I've just told you guys that the hot, less dense water goes up to the cooler water as the more dense, cooler water descends. How do I know if the warm water in the bottom is less dense than the cool water in the top? Well, this is because density is equals to mass divided by volume. That is a formula of density. Now, when liquids and gases actually expand, when they're heated, they actually expand, which means that the particles actually take up more volume. This is since the gaps between the particles widen. So as I told you guys earlier about the kettle of water, when it is boiling, what happens is that the particles start moving very quickly, and ever so slightly they also start to expand. What they mean by expanding is that the gaps between the particles widen. So as the particles are moving, the gaps between the particles start widening, so the volume actually gets increased. Now, if we actually have this formula, density is equals to mass divided by volume, we will realize that if we have a bigger volume, it will become a less density. So more volume means less density. Therefore, over here, when we actually have the warmer water, we can see that the fire is obviously nearer to the bottom of the water than the top of the water. So the bottom of the water is less dense because when we're actually applying heat to the bottom of the water, the particles actually start expanding more than the top of the water. And this means that they get more volume, and this means that it is less density. Therefore, the warmer water in the bottom is less dense because they expand more than the top of the water, which is cooler. So this is basically how I knew that the warmer water is less dense and the cooler water is more dense. So that's basically what you have to know about density and a convection current. This is really, really important. So this is basically all that we've learned today about convection. I know that it is a lot of information to take in, so you may want to rewatch this video or maybe even try and do some more research by yourself. But just as an overview of what we have learned today, we understood what heat energy is. Heat energy is a high kinetic energy of atoms, molecules, and ions. We've also learned what convection is. Convection is the transfer of heat energy through fluids, which are liquids and gases, and what happens is that there is actually a convection current that is set up. Speaking about convection currents, we also learned how a convection current is set up. The warmer, less dense water in the bottom goes up to the cooler water in the top, and the cooler water descends. And last of all, we also learn what density is and its formula. Density is mass divided by volume, and we always should know that the warmer water is less dense than the cooler water. Thank you for watching this video. Please make sure to thumbs up and subscribe to the School Station for more free science and maths lessons. Bye guys!